The word sanctions took on a grimmer meaning for Berliners as the Russian blockade against the people of the western sectors went into its third week. Power shutoffs, necessitated by the coal shortage, cut deep into production. Machines and the men who run them stood idle. Prospects for normal working and living conditions looked dark. City transportation was chaotic as each new day brought new hardships to the three western sectors. Cut off from their radios, people gathered at street corners to hear the US-operated loudspeakers. Everyone asked the same question: where is the coal? The answer lay in Helmstedt, where train after train waited for the Soviets to overcome their now famous technical difficulties. But the latest progress report issued by Marshal Sokolovsky was merely, the Soviets are taking measures to repair the railroads. Meanwhile, the Western Allies were continuing their own measures to break the Russian hunger blockade. Here, General Sir Brian Robertson, British military governor, inspects operations at Wunstorf Field near Hanover as English planes load for the run to Berlin. "50 minutes later, Gatow Field. This air bridge, unlike the bridge over the Elbe, is not in need of immediate repair, and no technical difficulties will stop this traffic. These French troops typify the spirit of all three powers working together to aid Berlin. But who ever heard of a one-way bridge? Why should 400 planes return empty every day? A 24-pfennig stamp becomes an airmail stamp, and letters reach the West in one day. Fast mail, a strange sidelight to Russian sanctions. Next day, another surprise. The first English flying boat settles onto the Havel River. Goodwill on the wing. 8 tons of goodwill on every plane. And then it came. Aboard the C-54s rushed from the United States, Alaska, and Panama. Coal over the air bridge. Coal to help get the western sectors back into commission again. Every sack, a Western reminder that Soviet sanctions are intolerable. Meanwhile, the people of the western sectors took their own stand. All week, thousands turned out to hear their leaders pledge Berlin's freedom. Here, a rally in the Fur-Berliner Platz, addressed by Dr. Suhr of the Social Democratic Party. Rain, after all, was the least of a Berliner's worries this week. Through all the speeches ran the same appeal. Berlin calls on the world. And the appeal was answered. First, from Western Germany itself. Schleswig-Holstein, Lower Saxony, Bremen, Frankfurt, Cologne, Bavaria, sending support, sending medical supplies, sending food. Typical of this action was the support in Hamburg, where Berlin's Franz Neumann appealed to a huge crowd before the City Hall. Later, the City Assembly called a special meeting to discuss the critical Berlin situation. Assembly President Schönfelder spoke first.
The people of Berlin have been cut off from all communications by land and water through the measures of the Soviet authorities. This has brought about a hunger blockade. We consider this hunger blockade a crime against humanity.
In the vote that followed, all but the 3 communist members supported measures designed to help the blockaded people of Berlin. Hamburg's Mayor Brauer closed the meeting.
We call on Berlin not to be pressured into surrendering their freedom and independence, no matter what measures are applied against them.
Ihre Selbstständigkeit für alle Zukunft verlieren.
But something further is necessary. An appeal to the other occupation powers, the Americans,
An die Amerikaner,
the British,
an die Engländer,
and the French.
an die Franzosen.
Be steadfast.
Und diese Forderung
You must not give up Berlin.
nicht
You must not desert the Berlin population.
diese Berliner Bevölkerung nicht ihrem Schicksal überlassen, indem ihr Unbequemlichkeiten aus dem Wege zu gehen, etwa Berlin aufgibt.
In London, Foreign Secretary Bevan stated, "We are lawfully in Berlin and it is our intention to stay there." In Washington, Secretary of State Marshall said, "Russia's attempt to isolate Berlin raises basic questions with which we expect to deal promptly." And then, the Allied note to Moscow issued simultaneously in London, Paris, and Washington. The meaning of this note was clear.